Hello everyone. My name is Javier Bosch. I come from Spain. I represent NBN23. We are a company that develops solutions for basketball. We've been talking today about technology and how technology has to help every sport. Well, every sport has a different need. We've been talking about this, and every need has to be satisfied with different technology sometimes. So to ask or to look for the perfect technology probably is not that easy, because perfect doesn't exist right now. Companies like us, what we have to do is we have to help teams to go one step farther. And in order to achieve what Taylor said, which is basics such as something like let's try to avoid injuries. This is our main objective. First thing, we have to make technology being used. So there are some barriers that we all find when we start doing these things. And first thing is cover the gap that Christoph mentioned between athletes, teams, and companies. So after being a while around here, I would like not just to tell you what we do, because we are a company that, as I said, we do have a software to track basketball players. We do it also you have. But I would like to share with you some of my thoughts regarding this. If we want to help a team, first thing we have to offer them is something easy to use and simple. Because as tech companies, as tech people, or physical coaches, we want to get the best. And sometimes we think we can offer them the moon, but they don't need the moon yet. They have to go first thing to first step, okay? So first, what we have to do is adapt to them. Second thing, not only easy, it has to be, let's say, usable. In basketball, for instance, you cannot use GPS to track a player. So you have to look for a solution that allows you to track someone indoors. And then you need to have a wearable. And a wearable has to be wearable, okay? Because if you do something this big, then it's not wearable, okay? The size and the convenience, how it has to be very, very small, because if not, they won't like to wear it. Also, players don't like to be tracked, so they don't have to feel that they are tracked. And the third point that I wanted to mention is that whatever we do as companies has to be standard. I remember when I was a kid, my dad bought a Betamax VC recorder, I think you call it, and it went down. Sony had a great product, but they didn't make it standard. So the VHS system took all the market. Since everything's starting right now, there's no standard. So if we are able, the companies, to set a standard, we will help the teams to go to the next step. They will feel protected about getting the software or the hardware from a company, because if they don't like it, they won't miss all the info they got, and they will go to the next level. So these three thoughts are in our mind as a company, and regarding the performance product that we have, is what we try to do all the time. And we work in these three steps, because we think that we have to help them to go to the next step, not to the moon. We'll reach the moon, but first thing, first thing. I had a video here, but since it's in Spanish, I think it's better if we talk and then you ask questions. Basically, as I said, what we do is we install locators in an indoor facility, and we use these kind of tags. This is just a Bluetooth sender. We do have all the science up in the roof of the place, and we're able to track all the players in real time. When I mean tracking, I mean we know the coordinates where they are. So this is the basic to start working, okay? We don't need to use video, because there are another existing technologies in basketball. NBA has been using video for some years already, I think probably 4. But video technology needs to be very high in order to have a zenithal view, and it's a little bit expensive for the budget of a typical basketball team. So we looked for this solution in order not only to help them to go to the next step, but in order to make them possible to pay that next step. This is basically, in a very brief way, how we get the info. Okay, we collect the info, we filter the info, and with that, we can start getting reports. Reports that help us measure the top speed and distance they cover, an easy number that you can tell who ran the most and who was the quickest. We can measure accelerations and decelerations, and this is a way to measure more or less the effort they did. Okay, and we are also able to measure workloads, collecting all this info. The third point I mentioned before is it has to be standard. We are now in the third version of our software, and we were doing very cool software, and at the end we're working with Real Madrid, for instance, in basketball, and we were offering them our software, and they had to deal with our software, all our software, somebody else's software. So they get sick of very fancy softwares. And what they all do at the end is they collect the CSV file and they go to Excel and they put all this data and they do all this deep analysis, taking the technologies from everyone and putting them together. So the third version was, okay, no fancy software anymore. Let's make it as they want it. So we have created a system that sends the info directly to Power BI. Power BI, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's a Microsoft tool to visualize data, something like a nice Microsoft Excel that helps you create these reports, let them created before, and you just have to generate the data, and it uploads immediately. So you can collect the data coming from different sources. It could be our source, or it could be a Polar thing, or it could be whatever will happen in the future. Because if we want to help them go to the next step, they have to keep the info. It doesn't matter if it's from us or from someone else. Okay? So I wanted to make it very, very simple and just tell you what we do for basketball, and I'll leave you some time to ask me questions. Okay, so if anyone has a question?
Can you also track the ball?
Interesting question. We do. Actually, the only thing we need is to have a ball with a Bluetooth sensor inside, so it has to send the signal. I've been talking to the most important basketball company that does it, and it's technically possible, and actually they do have one ball that they sold, a few years ago, and they're gonna probably create a new one, and that'll be perfect because it will be compatible. When I said that I wanted to have a system compatible, first thing I thought it for myself. So this is why we chose Bluetooth. Because whatever you do with Bluetooth can be read with our system. So if you're gonna develop a smart ball, and you're a company that sells balls, you're gonna want people to buy a ball to use their cell phones to play with it. And the way to connect a ball with a cell phone is through Bluetooth. So yes, actually there's a ball from Wilson that is already working with Bluetooth. So yeah, can be tracked. The thing is that then you have to go to a next level. You have to talk to the leagues and tell them to change the ball. So this is the third step, but it adds a lot of value to the data, because if you track the ball, then you can read the game, and you can read all the plays, and you can do a lot of things. Yeah, interesting question, thanks.
I may have missed that. Do you track also in real time? So and also real time the other players from the other team? Because they don't have a sensor, of course.
It depends. We can track them if they have to wear it. So we can track anyone wearing a tag. So we are able to track both teams in real time. And actually one of the tools that we have developed in order to access the market, the easiest, is an easy software to send the data to TV and to send the data to the scoreboard. Because who has the money in a competition? In Spain, for instance, we've got very powerful teams, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Baskonia. We've got 3 powerful teams. And then if you go to the mid-table, you've got teams with lower budgets. But there's one company that has the rights of everything, and they want to have the fan more engaged, and it's the TV right owner. So this is why we did it like this. So it's good to help in performance, and I wanted to talk about performance, but the best thing, or the best way to help is to get the technology installed. So you have to look at how can you add the most value to it. And we thought that to give data to TV and to say who ran the fastest, or how fast was the last fast break, or to tell the difference that was in a play between one player and the other. They had 2 meters difference, and look, if you leave them 2 meters, you're gonna score a 3 basket. This kind of info, we think that adds value to TV. And it has to be real time, and we provide it real time.
I think not only to TV, but to the trainers themselves. Do you have any idea if they use that information during the game to change tactics?
The best computer available right now to analyze data is a coach's brain. They've got the best computer. So they've got their own way to analyze data. Again, if we want to go to first step, the ball probably is 3rd or 4th. I think to change the way, the mindset of a coach is the 20th. It will happen. It will happen. Not the coach, but an assistant coach saying, hey, look, last time we did that, happened that, let's not do that again. But right now, the best way to do it is the coach's brain, I think.
So you keep talking about the next level. So compared to what your company is doing now, what is the next level for you?
Well, for us, sometimes the next level is not to go deeper and get more analysis. For instance, we are exploring to integrate pulsometers. We already did that. We are now adding accelerometers. Okay, and it could be interesting to keep on adding things. You can add things to measure your levels of lactic acid, for instance. Whatever you want to measure to add to the system. But really, what we want to do is to have a lot of first steps. So we are really focused on make it affordable and easy to be everywhere. So instead of focusing, at the very beginning we had that idea of let's bring them to the moon. But now we're realizing that let's bring them all to the first step. So for us, to go deep means to go to many, many teams to the first level. But of course we can do many, many things, because whatever can be tracked and whatever uses Bluetooth can be read to the system and can be added to the report that I showed you before.
What are the sports where this is applicable, and what budget do I use to use it?
Okay. So far we have focused in basketball because we're basketball people. So we started this project because we love basketball. Most of my partners are former and actual professional basketball players. And this can be used actually to any indoor sport, because handball has the same thing. Can we do the ball in handball? Can be done. It's interesting to measure distance and accelerations, decelerations. It is. Can be done. Have we done it? No yet. Can be done. Would it take us too long? No, it wouldn't. Volleyball. Volleyball can be done for players. It's a little bit trickier, the ball, because the ball in volleyball is lighter, but could be done. And the budget that we are managing is between 30,000 and 50,000 a year. So imagine this kind of budget. Many professional teams in Europe, they don't have it. So first thing, we have to work with the teams that are willing to do it, work with TVs adding more value to the broadcast in order to generate that data that will allow eventually to prevent injuries. Because it is very nice to try to prevent an injury tomorrow, but in order to do that, you need an N huge, and you need to have a lot of data collected to go back and study what happened last time that happened something like this. So first thing, get it used. Real Madrid, for instance, has been using it for a year and a half already. Ever since we started, they helped us, and they've been collecting a lot of data. And they do have now a database of all their players, good enough to start analyzing. But you need to use first and collect data.
What's the accuracy of the system? Accuracy of the in distance that you can measure?
Okay,
so centimeter, 10 centimeter, 50 centimeters?
Yeah, the accuracy, is something that it depends a little bit on how well we are able to do the installation. So it's not always exactly the same, but we have gone from 95% accuracy. So we get a mistake of 5 centimeters, okay? But we don't measure it in centimeters because we measure in percentage, because what we want to do is to see how long they run. So between 95, the best, and 83, the worst. Actually, below 83, we don't recommend it, okay? So, and it affects to some of the things. I mean, if you've got very good quality, above 90, you can measure very well high speeds, and you can measure the maximums. But if you get lower, then you have to be okay with just measuring distances and so on. So, the accuracy is really, really good, but this is one of the things that at the very beginning we were very focused on getting a very, very, very precise system. And then we realized that it had to be simple. Because if it's not simple, but at the very beginning was our first focus. Precise, 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 and it's very precise. But that's not the barrier. I mean, you don't lose a customer in this case because it's...
Because you start from zero, but people want to move on. You want to have an accuracy, because if you're 5 centimeters off with the goal, then it's off the post on the other side of the field. So, in the end, you want this accuracy, but not in the beginning, because you start collecting data.
But it's a lot more accurate than GPS. And GPS already adds value. I mean, you can use GPS, but this is a lot more because you're, let's say, you're doing like installing satellites inside a facility, and you have them always in the same position. So this is how you can get the precision as well.
Okay, one last question.
Can you tell us something about injury prediction?
Yeah, well, as I said, we are focused on collecting data and providing providing the data ready to be analyzed. Okay. In order to prevent from injuries, first thing will be to have a lot of data. So right now, there's no solution in the market that says if you do this, this is going to happen. It will happen. And when we were talking about what's going to happen in 30, 40 years, you will have that. But same thing that you will go to the doctor and you won't have a radiologist saying what's happening with you, because they will have a lot of data before, and the system will say automatically there's a cancer inside there. But first thing, you need to collect all the data. So right now we're in the phase of getting it and start doing the first test. But right now, I'm telling you, neither us and neither there's no company right now that would be reliable saying if you do this, this is going to happen. But it will happen.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think really interesting information. Also, I mean, the motivation he has is for me very inspiring. He traveled from Spain to Ghent to give this talk. So maybe another hard applause for him to that.